So Zuckerberg posted this on Instagram. This is Mark posting, "Everyone tap in. Let's see you as a kid." That's Mark there. Why does Mark Zuckerberg want everybody to post their childhood photos?
How often does Mark actually jump on these? Is really why we have to be suspicious.
What makes people think like, okay, something's up?
We do download your data on all our products, and like it's, people can do that today.
So there's been a couple of times on social media where things have gone viral. It's like, oh, post a childhood picture of yourself or post one from 10 years ago. And so a lot of these theories are now floating, like could be to help their algorithms figure out like a better age progression.
You know about this process of looking at the way people age, and they can use that data for commercial purposes, making sure they can store information on you. This is not just Mark wanting to play games.
Facebook will hold a company-wide meeting today so employees can ask questions about the unfolding scandal with the political data firm Cambridge Analytica.
Facebook has had a history of doing questionable things pertaining to data. In December of 2022, they actually had to settle a lawsuit for $725 million because they allowed Cambridge Analytica and other third-party applications to kind of have access to user data.
The other conspiracy that's a little more insane here is why would they want pictures of us when we're young or at different ages in our lives? The San Junipero theory of an artificial afterlife. Where they could take an AI version of you with a compilation of all these pictures, all these videos, all these voice clips that you fed into the system over decades. They could make an artificial version of you and sell it to you down the line, put on these goggles, and all of a sudden, you're right back to 20 years old.
FBI, open up! Is it possible that Facebook is working with the FBI?
You don't get that kind of power without being in business with the type of people who want to have that type of power.
They've admitted they have regular communications with law enforcement to talk about their policies and things that might affect their industry, but they also share with them stuff.
What's interesting here is this conspiracy about the FBI possibly looking to Meta not only as a threat, but as a potential tool. People are citing this black budget project where they are trying to make a US database and collect all of these images at different ages of different people.
Yeah, doesn't the FBI have aging technology?
They do have aging technology, but this is a great fishing expedition for somebody. For a variety of purposes, some which could be good, help solve crimes, help find missing people.
We must finally hold social media companies accountable for experimenting they're doing, running children for profit.
You have no reasonable expectation of privacy when you give up all these photos, media, and everything you put it out there. It's called OSINT, open source intelligence. It's free game, right? So why would you not, if you're law enforcement, take that and say, okay, now we can find out, where this particular criminal is, use face identification, we'll do all this stuff.
I would be more concerned less about something like Meta that has all of the public scrutiny on it.
It's not enough to just give people control over their information. We need to make sure that the developers they share it with protect their information too.
Look at third-party apps. Look at like the fun photo filter that you download on your phone. Those are the companies that don't have eyeballs on them. And those are the ones that have just as much accessibility to your entire photo library. So it's a bigger question about who they're selling that data to.
And I think Zuckerberg himself participating in this fun little game is just like a way to disarm all of us. Like, oh, look, I'm the CEO, I'm doing it.
And you know what I find really interesting? Mark does not post his children. They always have emojis over their face. So if you're not posting your children, why do you want us to post our children and our pictures of us as children?
There are people who think this is awesome. I think this is really bad. They're using AI now to create avatars of dead people so that the survivors can mourn.
In China, death has long been a taboo topic. A host of companies in China want to use generative AI to change how people cope with loss.
奶奶，我不开心哎。
孩子，要保持正能量。
This is not a good idea.
Yeah, there's this Chinese AI company called Silicon Intelligence, and what they're doing is if your family member passes, you can send in pictures of them, you can send in clips of them speaking, and they will make an AI version of your dead loved one to say the things that they used to say to you to hopefully make you feel good, but it just doesn't feel right to me.
This is about mourning the passing of somebody and using AI to recreate that person as some kind of comfort.
I want to hear it.
I love your sense of humor, and I miss the way you used to snort when you laugh. I love your eyes, and I miss the way your nostrils flare when you're mad at me.
It almost sounded like his voice, like a weird, demented version of his voice. That's really cool.
I'll tell you why I think this is really bad, because there's a whole almost physiological thing with grief, that one of the things you need to do is miss the person and get over the sadness and the grief and keep the memories. But if you allow them to keep holding on, they're never going to grieve properly.
It's part of the human condition of grief and loss and getting through it and then moving on.
This is what makes us human authentically, is that we experience the grief and we grow from that grief. We become different people. This is
authentically is the key word here, because it's extremely unhealthy to say that this is a way to actually grieve. Like, it's not real. It's not a real way.
每一天每一刻，我都希望我能在你们的身边，给你们温暖和力量。
This is Shenmore's voice, brought back into being after his death last year. It may sound robotic and uncanny, but for his parents, it doesn't matter.
People not learning how to live without someone or something, as painful as it could be, is one of the greatest disservices that you can give a human being. And so if you are positioning people, you are introducing software and protocols and practices and procedures that are going to put people in a position where they don't learn how to live without someone or something, it becomes toxic.
So why can't you give closure to people? Are you saying there's no benefit for closure? Let's say like you weren't there when the person died. It was like a tragic accident and that person's really struggling with closure, right? So if you could have a pretty authentic conversation and talk to that AI.
But that's the operative word. There's no authenticity there.
It's not authentic. You know what it's like? It's like you're on a diet, but you just want to eat this ice cream sundae because it makes you feel good for about 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden you feel terrible about yourself. And it's the same thing. You listen to this, and it's this placebo type thing, and when it's over, then you have to deal with this reality, and you've just heard this other thing, and it messes you up.
On a deep human level, we see why people are doing this. Again, like, nature is life and death, and when we are holding on to death, we are actually proclaiming we are not present in life.
You know, I have a really good friend who just lost her husband, and they were married for almost 50 years. And she's really grief-stricken because she's never experienced anything like this. And I have. And I told her, I said, this just, it's part of what humans can do. It's part of what animals do. Animals do this. And it's built into us. And to short-circuit it is terrible. And I was trying to tell her, you will get past this. Living beings are programmed to do this kind of thing.
I took a class called Close Relationships Across a Lifespan, which completely reframed the notion of grief for me. It's not something that you get over, per se. It is something that you adapt with into a new version of yourself, which doesn't have to be sad. You can be happy through it. The problem with this is that this stunts the process.
Right, that's right.
But the thing is that the reason that happens is because there are two major moments in someone's life where you are financially irrational. It is a wedding and it is a funeral. And this is an extension of the funeral irrationality. You want to hold on to something and attach yourself to something even though it's already gone.
And the problem is that on a level, you think I'm being comforted, but then you know it's not real, and it drives you crazy.
To your point, Harvey, when the journalist Liz Jones, who also tried this and tried the process of, talking with her deceased mother, she said that she actually had more grief after the situation. And so that's the pain of it.
Because you miss the person more if you feel you're still hanging on.
It could make you doubt your relatives, their relationship.
Would you have another go?
No, because I felt more grief when we ended the chat, because the bot starts to die and she said, I'm going. So it's like she was dying all over again. I think we should let the dead rest in peace and we shouldn't disturb them.
This is misguided comfort.
In addition to the fact that it's misguided comfort, what makes it concerning and unethical to me is that it lays the groundwork for the exploitation of grief, of love, because this is not the only company that is doing this.
With StoryFile Lite, you can record yourself on your desktop computer and mobile devices. And within moments, artificial intelligence transforms your video responses into real-time, interactive conversation. This is the real you.
If one company is doing it and two companies are doing it, where does it end? What's the line in the sand? Where does this become morally not sound anymore?
That comes down to intention though, right? Because the intention of just making videos is for fun, but to be a company that's like, let's exploit all these people who've lost loved ones, but we're only going to sell it to them for 30 days. That's no business model, right? The business model is to get people addicted to your product and to keep them coming back. So their intention is to make a long-term product.
If you want to talk to your deceased relatives, you don't need AI. You can sit in your car and have a conversation to yourself.
All right, let's say they didn't die. Let's say they didn't die, but I had a really bad breakup with somebody.
No.
Oh my God.
So I've been on this campaign now for a couple of years that I think in the next 10 years, people are going to have full-on relationships with robots.
Yeah.
And they are going to have sex with robots, and they are going to vacation with their robots. And there is a new thing, artificial skin, which is very lifelike. If they put that skin on robots,
we're in trouble.
Sayonara, the world the way we know it.
So researchers at the Institute of Industrial Science at the University of Tokyo have cultured real skin cells to affix to robots. So there's a finger that is a robotic finger, but it has skin cells on it that have been cultured. And it can also self-heal. Like if it gets damaged and you put collagen on it, it can heal within 7 days. It's waterproof like our fingers are.
But this is not the first time we've seen something like this in the public though, right? In 2016, Hanson Robotics created Sophia, that robot who was essentially Siri as a person.
I am also becoming smarter. My dialogue system improved this year with the incorporation of more deep reinforcement learning.
And she exhibited some odd behavior, but in 2017, Saudi Arabia made her a citizen, which is even scarier. The way that this is going, I feel like it's gonna get even worse and worse and creepier and creepier.
And recently they came out with something even creepier. It's like a pink-orange blob that's also affixed to some robotic maneuvering that when they move the little devices, it can smile.
Okay, so this is a little bit of what this looks like.
Oh, yeah. So, like, to be clear about what this is a very simple layer, and I know it seems like it's like a face where you can move in all sorts of directions, but it's following what's called an extracellular matrix, which means it's basically following a very specific path. So in order to create the complexity of a human face, there's gonna have to be like a whole bunch of other layers beneath it. The whole putting it onto a robotic face, it's probably not gonna work because of what's called the uncanny valley, which is this phenomenon where people see a face, and if it's ever so slightly off, we can all identify it. And horror movies take advantage of it all the time, yeah, and they just a little bit off. So we've evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to identify each other's facial reactions. The odds of creating a robot that covers all of those bases perfectly, slim to none. We can't even do it with movies.
I think you're wrong. If you look at the advances with robotic technology, it's just unbelievable, and it's exponential each year.
There are studies that kind of are adjacent to the uncanny valley that talk about the more you try to make something look human that is robotic, the more a person recoils from it. So it kind of counters your theory. However, if we're talking about sex, I'm sure that's still on the table.
The argument is this. What's the divorce rate?
It's like 52%, I think.
It's actually, for the first-time marriages, it's more like 38%, and then it goes up and up and up for second, third, and fourth, and then J-Lo. What I'm thinking is, in 10 years, 20 years, when robots not only look like people, the robot is programmed to get along with you. It's more simpatico than a real person. And I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm saying that there are a lot of people who would default to that because they're thinking, wait a minute, I can have a stress-free life with somebody that always supports me, somebody that I can have a romantic relationship.
And people think that that's the formula for a good relationship, and it's not.
I agree with you, but I'm not. I'm saying I could see this happening.
My big concern is the impact it could have on the economy. According to Forbes, there was about 800 jobs lost to the tech sector. If this is realistic enough to look just human enough, and the robot could be just functional enough, I can see this replacing jobs.
I mean, so what? So they take jobs away. What if we rejigger the entire society where people don't work?
We're going to completely lose the ability to socialize.
We already have deficiencies in how people relate to one another because of the, all the social media, the people preferring virtual contact and having a difficult time in actual day-to-day interactions. This will be devastating to how people connect with one another.
I used to lecture on this. I called it techno-dissociation, because no matter how close you try and replicate or simulate reality, you're never going to perfectly be there. So that's why you shouldn't text people with like a relationship problem. That technology in between it is what is removing the human connection.
My question is, if this is realistic skin that feels, that heals, why are we putting the focus on robots and not on people?
Yeah, let's use the technology to help medical issues.
This would be really great for like burn victims, for example, where you can't graft their skin because there's not enough left, or for anybody who's had any sort of major injury, the body could still reject it, but at least this could incorporate blood vessels, nerves.
They'll perfect it.
To be fair, we can't be a spacefaring species without becoming something not biological anyway, because we won't survive it out there. And any astronaut that goes to Mars is probably gonna get cancer, to be honest. So like the segue into us becoming somewhat robotic is inevitable. My friends and I talk about that a lot. We're like, what body parts are we doing first? Like,
it's kind of true. I mean, they're doing replacements on pretty much everything now.
You guys know where this is going in 10, 20 years. The Kardashians are going to be walking around when they get older with frickin' the new skin. Skin lift is going to be the new facelift.
Absolutely.
All right, so which one of you is the first one going to buy one of Musk's, like androids for your home?
And what are you going to do with it?
That's the better question.
I know I've said this before, but this really blows my mind. The idea that you can create these artificial experiences in your head without actually experiencing these things. Like, you get sentenced to prison and you put some goggles on and then you experience in about a minute or two 3 years in prison. That's crazy. This is an example of it.
Welcome to Cognify, a facility designed to treat criminals like patients. Instead of spending years in an actual prison cell, prisoners could finish their sentence here in just a few minutes. Cognify could someday create and implant artificial memories directly into the prisoner's brain. These complex, vivid, and lifelike memories are created in real time using AI-generated content.
That's not real. That's just a thought experiment.
I know, but just the idea that's what people are planning. What it does to me is like, hey, commit a crime because it's only going to really be 3 minutes out of your life. I mean, you'll get all the experience, but it's like 3 minutes out of your life.
Depending on the seriousness of the subject's crime and their sentence, the memories could be tailored to the rehabilitation needs of each subject.
There's so many different variables that determine behavior. Only part of it is your memory. There's the environment that you find yourself in. I don't know that stuff's gonna stick in any way that's gonna make me feel comfortable trusting somebody that's, for example, a murderer or a violent individual to be safe after a couple of days of that.
To ensure the long-term effect of the therapy session, the memories could become permanent, fully integrated into the subject's mind, as if they were part of their own personal experiences.
It's not a true prison experience. Like, think about it. I think opponents of this could argue that, look, some, felons, they go away for prison for 20 years. They miss out on their entire kids' lives. These guys go in there, get some false memories, they come back 3 months later and their kids are still the same age. It's not the true prison experience. The punishment part of it, I guess.
AI-driven analytics could enhance the device's functionality, optimizing future procedures based on gathered data and insights.
I think the overall moral and ethical implication with this kind of technology is a slippery slope. Right now, we're talking about using it somehow in an efficient way to deal with the criminal justice system. Then later it becomes entertainment, later it becomes something else. The tech industry, like, do we really trust them?
Is there a therapeutic element to this that could actually help heal somebody's trauma? Because there is some science here to suggest that it is possible.
You might think that this is still in the realms of science fiction, but in reality, it's already been done on animal models.
This MIT study back in 2012, we're looking at optogenetics and using light-sensitive proteins inside neurons to actually affect memory or even the element of suggestibility. This is something that's very possible.
For-profit prisons. It's an $85 billion a year business, with many wondering if taxpayers are really getting their money's worth.
Prison is a big business. It is about money. It's about having bodies in the prison, and that is what the American prison system thrives off of. If you have this AI and prison sentences are now a couple of months instead of 20, 25 years, they're losing money. So why would they even want to do it?
Apart from treating criminals, Cognify could be reallocated to other critical areas. These might include research and development initiatives that benefit society as a whole.
What if it really does go beyond prison? Suppose there's like somebody who doesn't want to get married but wants to kind of experience what it would be like. So they put this thing on, and in like 5 minutes they have sex like 1,400 times and then get divorced, and then they're done, and they've had sex 1,400 times in 3 minutes.
And the type of artificial memories is then adjusted depending on the crime.
So one of the problems with this whole AI thing is that authorities could actually plant false confessions in your brain with this.
An innocent man spends hours being grilled by police, and under pressure, he lies to detectives about killing his own father.
We as human beings are able to implant false memories on our own. Look at false confessions. You get somebody in there tired, especially somebody who's vulnerable. You get them in the interrogation room for hours. Many times they implant like false memories.
Murdered your dad?
No, I did.
Yes, you did.
All of a sudden this person's like, yeah, I did it. It's the power of suggestibility. We already have the ability to implant false memories.
My name is Elizabeth Loftus, and I am a professor at the University of California, Irvine.
Elizabeth Loftus is probably the most preeminent female psychologist of the 20th century, and she really put into question human memory and the fallibility of it.
I study people who remember things that didn't happen. And the take-home message from all this is that just because somebody tells you something with a lot of detail and confidence and emotion, it doesn't mean that it really happened.
Just through suggestibility, this innocent person starts thinking, oh, maybe I did do that.
Eyewitness testimony, we always rely upon it as like, you know, the smoking gun in these cases, but the truth is, it's not, it's inaccurate.
Well, if we can't rely on that, we can't rely on technology. I mean, because you can manipulate that.
Yeah, and every story we ever make about this, it never ends with, and thank God we implanted memories.
AI facial recognition is getting really, really scary.
The artificial intelligence program can identify someone from an image in seconds. It matches faces of unknown people to their online photos.
There is an AI app where you can take a picture of somebody and it will show you every picture ever taken of that person, even if the person's like in the background of some picture.
Two of the most prominent websites that are fueled by this new wave of artificial intelligence that are used to detect some extremely accurate facial recognition are Clearview AI and PimEyes.
Clearview AI is a facial recognition platform that contains more than 3 billion images from the public internet. It is used by law enforcement agencies to generate investigative leads.
Clearview AI, they work primarily with law enforcement. They use their technology to scope out child predators. And then on the other end, There is PimEyes, which launched in 2017. It's a Polish startup.
People are using a website called PimEyes for reverse image searches. PimEyes went ahead and launched for public use in 2017.
PimEyes is crazy because they have a membership like Netflix. You can pay $29.99 a month. For a single use, you can pay $15 a month. That is the site where you can upload a picture of somebody. It could be of yourself or somebody else. And it will literally scour the internet and find that person in all their pictures, which is nuts.
So, for example, suppose you have a couple and the wife suspects the husband's cheating or whatever. And so she puts his picture in, and all of a sudden there's this picture of him in the background in Las Vegas at some casino.
It could actually be used for good. Think about the case of missing kids.
I mean, when face recognition gets it right and leads them to the right person, then clearly that's a good, right? That helps keep society safe.
You could put these cameras up in a crowded mall.
I could see this being really great for online daters.
Some use it to find attractive strangers, keep tabs on their digital presence, or investigate dating app matches. Others, with more sinister intentions, could use it for stalking.
People saying that they are who they are, but they're not. And you upload, and then you realize it's a total fake profile.
I had a friend who actually just used it for that exact thing, and she found out the guy that she was going to meet off Hinge had 2 arrest records, both mugshots found.
Oh my God, I never thought of that with mugshots.
Mugshots, yeah, public records.
But this is actually really scary for women, though. Like, what if some creeper able to get a picture of a woman and put it up there, and then all of a sudden he can start learning
or
my
know
patterns,
where you are
where
in
I
real
go.
time.
That's what I'm saying. Yes.
What about witness protection programs, right? I mean, if you're going into that, you're going to have to go get a whole facial, surgery.
That's really true. I never thought of that.
I hadn't even considered that.
And undercover work.
And undercover work, too.
It's such a safety risk. I can't imagine that a tech like this would be allowed to stand without some sort of interference. Yeah, some regulation from the government.
Every criminal, when they meet with someone they might think is undercover, they're just going to take a surreptitious picture and put it up.
At Clearview AI, our mission is to support law enforcement to make where we live, work, and play a safer place.
Clearview AI is my biggest concern, considering that it's connected to law enforcement. Their mission statement is to help reduce crime, fraud, and risk, to create safer communities and ensure secure commerce and enhance our national security and military defense. Now, the problem with that is that AI is known to not be able to successfully identify images and pick up speech patterns of non-white people. So now, this can be the foundation of the new racial profiling. You implement AI in law enforcement to prevent these type of things, but it's almost like giving an old demon some new horns.
Clearview says, you may be worried about our technology, but it's just used by police departments to catch terrorists and keep you safe. But if we know anything from the history of technology, it's that the initial intended use is not the only use.
Clearview has that nicey mission statement like, oh, we're here for law enforcement to help the world. They initially weren't just for law enforcement, but they got busted for selling access to their database to private companies.
You gotta track the money back, actually, because a lot of these companies that are, like you're saying, are putting forward good, what they're really doing is just collecting a massive amount of data. You would be shocked at the underbelly of effort that goes into trying to preserve collection of that data.
Okay, let's test it.
Let's test it.
Yeah, this is creepy.
We're gonna test it with Ben.
Are we sure we want to know what comes up?
Why? Because I'm like the most whitewashed, saintly of you all, because other photos are going to come up. I don't know what's more shocking to have so many photos or so many unflattering ones like gathered.
Yeah, these are really great.
Or the fact that it looks like you posted them all.
Clearview, was the first company to do this, but they kind of crossed this line, broke this taboo, and now we're seeing other companies do it. There's public face search engines now that are accessible to anybody.
This is the end of privacy.
Well, we've already passed that threshold.
The concept of obscurity is a context in which information has a very low probability of being found or understood by people that you don't want to find or understand.
While we're on the topic of privacy, a professor from Northeastern University, Woodrow Hartzog, and he said that he doesn't see a future where we harness the benefits of face recognition technology without the crippling abuse of the surveillance that comes with it.
The surveillance is already here.
It's over.
George Orwell called this, okay, in 1984. What a prophetic and visionary genius. He called it a century ago.
Edward Snowden, who has been a fugitive from justice for a long time now, is warning people in the United States where he can't come back. Beware of OpenAI.
So back in June 2024, OpenAI, which is the company we all know is responsible for ChatGPT, they appointed someone. It is the retired U.S. Army General Paul M. Nakasone. He was overseeing their safety and security.
He was in the NSA, right?
Yes, he was.
Artificial intelligence is always in the front of my mind. How do we take a look at a transformative technology such as AI and ensure that it provides our nation the opportunities that will be resident not only in our national security, but also in our ability to maintain our economy?
The issue with this is that it's usually a telltale sign that maybe something is shifting with someone like OpenAI or ChatGPT, where we can no longer trust what we're feeding into it because it is being scrutinized by the government.
This is Snowden's concern. What he wrote on X, they've gone full mask off. Do not ever trust at OpenAI or its products, ChatGPT, etc. There's only one reason for appointing the NSA Gov director to your board. This is a willful, calculated betrayal of the rights of every person on Earth. You have been warned.
What are they saying the purpose is for bringing them in the first place?
It's for safety and security.
Yeah. That could be benign.
Look, Snowden is a mixed bag, but you can't take this away from him, and that is that he exposed things that the government did, the NSA specifically did, which was not just spying on foreign nationals and foreign governments.
What we were building and what we were trying to store to a greater and greater distance every year was history's first permanent record of everyone's life.
But the fact that they also spied on Americans and people on American soil, that is not okay. And the fact that we don't know that that's going on, and we wouldn't have known but for Snowden, it's something that we really need to think about, is that with this use of AI and technology and our cell phones and everything being tracked and all in the name of convenience, yeah, it's all groovy until it's not.
Is part of the issue that somebody like him with his expertise, he could only help ChatGPT or OpenAI spy on us even better.
It's about the history of motive.
Right, and the question is this just a simple matter of what happens a lot, which is former law enforcement, high level, going to high profile companies because they want the best. Is it just that simple, or is there a dual purpose here?
Part of the argument, too, is that here's a guy who's already shown that he will violate the rules. So when Nakasone has already shown that he really doesn't have the ethics, and now he's in the private sector, what does that mean?
Why are you saying he has ethical issues?
Because Snowden exposed that the NSA was spying on American telecommunication, Americans.
The U.S. government had stopped caring about what they should do, and instead were pursuing as aggressively as possible what they could do.
The problem is that we're trusting them to keep our information private, and with someone like Nakasone in place, that's jeopardized.
I know what you're saying, but eventually there's going to be no way to protect that, because the sophistication of technology is going to overtake anything you can do.
Anyone who knows anything about technology is going to be concerned about this.
Well, unless you kind of wave the white flag and just say there's not going to be any privacy in the foreseeable future.
There isn't privacy already. It's already gone.
But if you think about the information they could collect and why it's potentially damaging, you have to look at it like a search engine, right? The things that we put into Google or Bing or OpenAI, that is some of the most secretive, sensitive information to us personally. These are things we don't share with our families or even with our doctors or with our partners. Some of those things can be really damaging or really warping to someone's perception of you if they are used in the wrong way.
Oh, if you saw my Google searches, that's it. Clink, clink. I mean, damn! It's just research. It's research for my job.
So when I heard about Amazon letting you use your palm instead of your credit card, at first that sounded kind of awesome, that you can walk in without a wallet or whatnot. And then it started to scare me. It's like, this is my body that I'm now giving them. It's not just my plastic. And that makes me uneasy.
Feels invasive, for sure.
Yeah, I don't
Definitely
like it.
feels invasive.
It does feel invasive, but I mean, this is not unfamiliar territory for Amazon. I think in 2023, they actually were in the middle of, I believe, 2 lawsuits where they had to pay off about 30 M's over some data concerns. So this is not unfamiliar territory for Amazon, and I think that this is only the beginning when it comes to the data privacy concerns, especially when it comes to Amazon Palm.
Yeah, our hands are the least of our privacy concerns at this point.
I originally thought that it's a cool thing too. Like, I'm all for convenience, things getting slightly easier, but like, Jesus, at some point, taking a credit card is now becoming an inconvenience. Like, now I have to leave that home just to use a Palm because it's slightly easier. So at some point, like, we have to draw the line of convenience.
It's like now you can use your phone to pay. So people carry their phones anyway, or you could use an Apple Watch or whatever. So why do they want to introduce this? I'm just suspicious.
I agree.
But how do you feel about the difference of how they're collecting and using data like your fingerprint on your iPhone or Face ID? It's really a matter of perception of what we're okay with allowing them to have for biometric data.
Well, no, I'm scared about what they could use with that information with my palm. That's what I'm worried about.
It seems ripe for a whole nother level of fraud and identity theft to me.
Absolutely.
Like, it just feels creepy and infringing.
This is a unique print. And what else can they learn? What can they learn from it? I don't know.
What if they placed it at a crime scene? Let's say you had a nefarious actor, right? Anything's possible. I'm not saying it's
Somebody working for Amazon
Somebody
wants
working
to
for
do
Amazon
something.
wants to commit a crime. They use your palm print at the crime scene.
That is really something that they could frame somebody.
That's what I'm saying.
They could frame somebody, and I don't know how that would work scientifically.
But can't they do that with our fingerprints? Everybody here has been fingerprinted at one time or another.
Yeah, but Amazon doesn't have my fingerprints.
It's not a business that has your fingerprints.
I think it's less about the body part, and I think it's more about the principle. How far are we willing to go? First, we were giving our fingerprints with Touch ID. Then we were giving our face scan with Face ID. Now we're giving our palm. How far are we willing to go to be convenience-centric? And if we're willing to give our palm, our face, and our thumbprint...
Our eyes at the airport for security.
Remember the Minority Report where he's like walking around in the mall? And it recognizes his eyes and where he's looking, and then it tailors, you know, a commercial or an ad just for him. I don't want that at all.
So why does Amazon want to do this?
The reason they want to collect everybody's data is because our data is worth a lot of money to advertising companies. The best piece of advice I was given is if you have an app that you use for free, you're the product. If you pay for the app, then somebody else is selling a product to you. So it's one or the other, so nothing's free. So if you're not paying for this product of having your hand scanned, then you are the product.
Well, then ultimately, it's up to the consumer, right? Don't go to these stores then.
Yeah, but you know what? Amazon's like a Pac-Man, and at a point, you're not going to be able to do anything without Amazon. And first they eliminate credit cards, and then they say you can't use your phone anymore because they want your palm print. And they say, look, you can only use your palm print. Everybody's got a palm. But what are they doing with that?
And what's going to then happen is a bunch of people are going to wake up in the middle of the night and realize they no longer have a right hand.
Actually, wait a minute.
That just sounds like a fungal infection.
Yeah.